is being recorded and it will be shared. There are no cameras on participants and there's no chat function. We encourage you to submit questions using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. You'll be able to see questions that other participants have submitted. And if you see one that you'd really like to see answered, then you can hit the upvote button on that question and that'll bring it to the top of our queue and we'll answer that one first. We will be saving all questions until the end of the presentations, but we've saved a lot of time to do questions and answers with all of you. We will make every effort to get all of your questions answered, and we'll stick around extra even if we need to make sure that all of your questions get answered. And now I'd like to introduce Leslie Bannigan and Renee Johnson with Kitsap Public Health. Leslie and Renee have over 25 years combined experience in helping people with septic systems to keep those systems working well, in turn saving them money and keeping our water clean and healthy. Leslie and Renee are incredibly knowledgeable and incredibly passionate about sharing that knowledge with people to help them get the most life out of their septic systems. Take it away, Leslie and Renee.
Did you know that you can get more life out of a septic system by inspecting the tank every 3 years and pumping when needed? Hi folks, I'm Leslie Bannigan.
And I'm Renee Johnson.
We're environmental health specialists with Kitsap Public Health, where we find and fix fecal pollution sources so they don't make people sick. We also help people get the most life out of their septic system investment. And we're here today to help you get pumped for septic tank pumping.
Close your eyes and imagine you're hosting a backyard barbecue. Everyone's having a great time and the kitchen and bathroom are getting plenty of use. Then you smell a lingering odor and it's not the delicious smell of searing meat on the barbecue. You decide to sniff out the source. And what do you find? Sewage bubbling up from your septic tank. Over the next hour, we'll share some tips to prevent this from happening to you.
We want you to get the most life possible from your septic system because it's a big investment. When we meet with people, we've noticed some common barriers or reasons why maintenance is postponed. Let's take a poll of the group to see which of these apply to you. In just a couple of minutes, we can see the combined results of the whole group. And don't worry, it's anonymous. We struggle with these barriers too, and we want to help you overcome them by sharing some simple steps and real life stories so you can get the most life possible from your septic system. The important things are to know how it works, know how to maintain it, avoid water overload, avoid strong waste, and prevent physical damage. Let's start with how a septic system works. Here is a standard gravity system. The basics are the same, even if you have a more complicated alternative septic system. You can see how all the house wastewater flows through a septic tank, where the solids settle, allowing just the clear wastewater to go through to the drainfield soils. This is a side view of a one-compartment septic tank. Sewage flows into the tank through the inlet baffle, a pipe that turns the water 90 degrees, so the scum layer floats to the top and the sludge settles to the bottom. Baffles keep the stronger scum and sludge solids in the tank so they don't plug drainfield soils. Only the clearer wastewater in the middle of the tank, called effluent, flows to the drainfield. Bacteria in your digested food waste helps break down the solids in the tank. So if you want to do something nice for your septic system, eat a delicious meal and use the bathroom. The microbes from your body do all the work, so don't waste your money on septic system additives. Reduce the use of strong chemicals and cleaning products because they can kill those good microbes in your tank and drain field. It's very important to inspect the tank every 3 years and pump when about 1/3 full of scum and sludge. More complicated alternative systems require inspection at least every year. Here is a typical 2-compartment tank. The second compartment provides another layer of protection for your drain field because the scum and sludge solids settle out more. Protect your septic system and prevent your drain field from early clogging by inspecting your tank and baffles every 3 years and pumping tanks when about 1/3 full of scum and sludge. A filter is sometimes added in the outlet baffle of the septic tank. These need regular service to prevent sewage overflows in your home or yard. Please reach out to me or Renee if you have questions about how to safely clean an effluent filter. You can see the green watertight risers on the tank lid. These give easy access, so you don't have to dig up your tank every time it needs service. It's very important to secure your tank lids to prevent the tragedy of kids and pets falling in. Here is a close-up picture looking down at the center wall inside a 2-compartment septic tank. You can see the white baffle that straddles the 2 compartments. The wastewater effluent leaves the tank, flowing through a watertight pipe into a distribution box. You can see the 2-inch wastewater inlet pipe into the D box. 4 larger pipes flow to the drainfield legs. Inside those pipes, you can see the round black levelers that adjust to help effluent flow equally to the drainfield legs. Sometimes distribution boxes deteriorate or fill with sludge or roots. Protect your D box from plant and tree roots. Here's a video of wastewater flowing into a distribution box from a septic tank. We've shown you how wastewater is collected and transported through the septic tank and distribution box. Now let's talk about wastewater treatment. Soil can do an amazing job of filtering and treating wastewater. Soil microbes gobble up waste particles as the wastewater effluent wicks through unsaturated soil. Septic systems are carefully designed and drain fields are located to make sure there's enough soil to treat the waste. State and local laws permit different systems depending on soil type and depth, and setbacks to wells and surface water. Most of us in Washington rely on groundwater for our drinking water, and that's why we need to make sure that groundwater is treated by septic system soils so the bugs in sewage don't make us sick. When you pump water from a well, it develops a cone of depression as it draws in groundwater from around it. And that's why it's so important to have your septic tank, your septic set back from wells, and to keep your septic system working well. Here is a gravel and perforated pipe drain field. Perforated pipe has holes in it to allow the wastewater effluent to move into the gravel and soils. This is a rare look inside a gravelless drain field. These chambers are used when clean gravel is hard to find or on sites with difficult access. This photo shows a distribution box and transport lines for a gravity drain field, where wastewater effluent is distributed equally to each drain field leg. The observation ports allow you to see inside the drain field from above the ground to find out if the system's working the way it was designed. Gravity drain fields with serial distribution like this are typically used on slopes. Sewage completely fills the top leg of the drain field first, and only when the top leg is full does it step down or overflow into the next leg. You need to manage trees and shrubs near the step downs to prevent damage. Pressure distribution systems divide the wastewater effluent into 6 or more doses per day. The doses are pumped to the drain field through pressurized drain field lines that distribute the wastewater dose throughout the whole drain field. This more complicated alternative design is used when the soil isn't deep enough to treat the effluent through gravity distribution. Pressure distribution systems require annual maintenance because they can easily become clogged without it. Now that you know how a septic system works, let's look at some septic system failures. This one has the typical foul-smelling, slimy, blackish-gray water surfacing in the drain field. This one also has standing water and soggy soils in the drain field area. Some other things to look for are wet spots in dry weather, gray water, laundry or sink water discharging to the ground or surface waters, or gurgling sounds, slow drainage, or backups in plumbing caused by a slow drain field. This tank is a hazard because it's open to the ground surface where pets and people can fall in and flies can transport waste out. See the stained area on the green septic tank riser and signs of moisture on the otherwise dry ground? These are signs of a septic tank overflow that is partially dried. Here we confirmed that sewage was leaking into the lake by flushing red dye in the house toilet and finding it coming out in the lake. We found high bacteria counts at this bulkhead drain, and dye testing the house confirmed that it was sewage leaking out onto the beach. Now that you know how a septic system works and what a failure looks like, here's how you find the records for your septic system. Permit and maintenance records have important information about where your system parts are located and your water budget, or how much water the system was designed to treat every day. Go to www.kitsappublichealth.org. Find the wells and septic section at the bottom of the page, and you can search for your property records, application and permit status, and your septic maintenance records. The sewage permit is your guide to the size and location of your system. This one is sized for 3 bedrooms at 360 gallons per day. The as-built drawing shows the approximate location and size of the septic system. This one shows the house, septic tank, distribution box, and 3 60-foot drain field legs. Here is the building site application. This is the system plan that's based on water budget, soil type and depth, and required setbacks. The building site application includes a plot plan showing the proposed layout of the system. Modern building site applications dedicate a reserve area for septic system replacement when needed. If you have trouble finding your records or your water budget, please reach out to me or Renee. Next, we're going to share a few stories to highlight the importance of regular maintenance and some simple fixes to get a system back in order. Leaky toilets can fail septic systems. My family had an old basement toilet that we didn't use, but one day my husband used it and forgot to jiggle the handle. We were lucky that our pump tank alarm let us know about the water leak before sewage came up in the yard.
One of the services Leslie and I offer are personalized site visits, where we bring your system records and give site-specific recommendations. Leslie and I visited this property with a history of tank overflows and gurgling in the plumbing. The roof gutter was draining directly to the septic tank and overwhelming it during heavy rains. Route your downspouts at least 10 feet away on the downhill side from your tank and drain field, so your system can do the important job of treating your dirty water. Roof gutters can also direct sediment into your tank and drain field. Thick scum and sludge from delayed pumping can plug your system. The landlord of this house was proud that he hadn't pumped the tank in 20 years. He didn't even pump the tank at his own house until it backed up inside and made a big mess. This tank was almost totally full of scum and sludge. That's living in the danger zone. You wouldn't wait for problems to change the oil in your car, and you shouldn't wait for problems to pump your septic tank. Reduce stress on your system and on yourself by having your tank inspected every 3 years and pumped when it's 1/3 full of solids. Even with regular operation and maintenance, alternative systems can still get thick scum and sludge. My system recently had high scum and sludge in one compartment. The pumper didn't empty it during 2 prior visits because they didn't want to remove internal parts. During the next checkup, my operation and maintenance person saw it was still 80 to 90% full of solids. Yikes, that's not good. If you have an alternative system, check with the pumper to see if your maintenance person needs to be on hand during pumping. No matter what type of system you have, You can prevent excessive scum and sludge buildup. Always do your scheduled maintenance, keep food scraps from going down the drain, and don't use garbage disposals. Be sure to spread out your laundry loads so the fibers from your clothes can settle out in the tank. And avoid using strong chemicals like bleach, ammonia, and liquid drain openers and harsh cleaners because they can slow or stop normal processes by killing the good microbes in your tank and drain field. The tool shown in this video is called a sludge judge, and it's measuring the sludge in my tank. Delayed maintenance can lead to surfacing sewage in your yard. We helped the owner of this system address her fear of unknown costs. She was worried, but led me to the wet spot in her yard. She put on her boots and gloves and slogged through the sewagey mess to find the outlet baffle access. She used a metal fence stake to pry off the cap and fish out the filter. The filter hadn't been cleaned in 7 years. A clean filter and septic pumping was all it took to get this system back on track. Prevention is key. Know your system components and keep track of maintenance to prevent problems. Regular pumping and inspections can help uncover other issues like problems caused by settling or physical damage. When the owner of this system had his tank pumped, the water level was too high. Sometimes this happens when components have settled or are damaged, and sometimes that happens when a drain field isn't taking water at the designed rate. He used his contractor experience and tools to find and fix the problem and was delighted to find a bent transport line instead of a drain field issue. Protect your system from damage caused by parking, driving, burning, or pasturing large animals, because septic systems are often buried shallowly.
You can protect your septic system and save money by using fewer harsh cleaning products. Instead, you can use greener options like baking soda, vinegar, oxygenated cleaner, and Castile soap. Make your own green cleaning kit with the link that you'll find in our resource list. For safety, it's important to label all cleaning products you make and not to reuse cleaning product bottles. To wrap up, you can protect your septic system investment by knowing how to maintain it, avoiding water overload, avoiding strong waste, and preventing physical damage.
Thank you, Leslie. Thank you, Renee. As a reminder, we're holding questions until the end, but please feel free to drop your questions into the Q&A whenever you're ready or whenever they crop up. And we'll answer those when all of our presentations are done. I'd now like to introduce you to Paul Cushy. Paul has been a Master Gardener for 7 years and is co-lead for the Kitsap Master Gardener Answer Clinic. Paul's passion is helping people solve garden and plant problems, and he's also president of the Kitsap County Dahlia Society. Take it away, Paul.
Thank you, Cami. And thanks for the opportunity to talk about planting over your septic systems. Before I go any farther, I'd like to make sure people understand that your septic system is your tank, your D-box, your drain field, and your reserve drain field, if it's been defined. There are 6 elements to your planning process. Know your system and where it's located. If you don't know it, you can check with Kitsap Public Health. They have your records. Protect your components from damage. Roots can cause more damage than a shovel. Protect your soil from compaction. Choose your plants carefully. Consider your plant size at maturity and don't believe the nursery tags. That is only 3 to 5 years of growth. And after 10 years, those trees will get big. And locate your large plants away from the components. It is best to maintain a 25-foot perimeter. Never plant a tree or shrub with aggressive roots near your system or drain field lines. Let me repeat, never plant a tree or shrub with aggressive roots. It's just not good for your system. Your tank and drain line can get plugged, just like this perforated line. This was removed from a local drain field. Only choose shallow rooted plants. Always avoid woody plants like willows and cedars that have large invasive root systems. I know, I hate mowing too, but lawns are the best. Shallow root systems, they drain well and are easy to replace if you have to do any work on your drain fields. There are a number of alternatives to lawns that you might consider. Eco lawns are my favorite. Nothing better than a field of little English daisies mixed in with the grass to help, and it also helps you reduce your mowing. Wildflowers are a common drain field planting. Low maintenance, nice to look at, easy to reseed, or in most cases, they reseed themselves every year. Here's a picture of a shallow root, low maintenance perennial bed. Easy to replace, easy to work on, but it also looks pretty nice. It is always acceptable to be creative and hide your components. None of us like to see those tank and D-box lids and inspection ports, so be creative. Even a simple decorative pot on the lid in the lawn can remove an eyesore. Creating a small garden around a lid is also acceptable, but with the correct plants. Or painting or creating a mosaic on the lids can change the appearance out in your lawn. But don't hide too well. You will find them, you'll need to find them in the future, guaranteed. Cover with heavy and permanent objects. Don't cover with concrete, plastic sheeting, or weed cloth. Don't leave just remember, these are living, breathing systems and that need to be open to the environment and not buried underneath other materials. Always maintain easy access. You don't want to have to tear up your garden any more than you have to. You should be pumping every 3 years. The Kitsap hard service requirement is 10 feet away from the tank. No concrete patios over your tanks. You'll regret it later. No buildings on your reserve drain field either. The question I always get is, can I plant my garden over my drain field? Vegetable gardens should never be planted on top of a drain field and are not recommended for your reserve system either to avoid compaction. Remember, this is a living, breathing ecosystem for processing household effluent. Gardens need frequent watering. Overwatering can destroy a drain field. Rototilling and turning soil disrupts the surface and can be dangerous to your drain lines. Regular access creates compaction, and you don't want to be making paths through your drain field. Seasonal planting also can damage some components. But most of all, septic effluent contains human pathogens. System failures put raw sewage into the soil, not what you want coming up in your garden. So plant a lawn, save yourself a lot of potential trouble in the future. If you have specific questions, you can contact the Kitsap County Master Gardeners. Here's their address on our website. We're more than happy to help you answer specific plants and point you to resources that can guide you in your planting projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. So when you registered for the event, you may have noticed that you were eligible if you attended to be put into a raffle for a green cleaning kit. So it is time to announce our winners for today. They are Tobin Stewart, Claire Ward, and Kim Leitner. We've had a few questions in our previous webinars about what's in these green cleaning kits, and it's all things that you can find and acquire easily. Renee, do you have one by any chance on hand? That's okay.
I do. I could go get it.
No, it's okay. It's fine.
Okay.
So you'll receive an email with a link to green cleaning resources. In the kit that these people will receive is a small amount of Castile soap, which can be mixed with water to make a great surface cleaner. There's oxygenated cleaner, which is good substitute for bleach in your laundry, but can also be used for scouring sinks and toilets and baths and things like that. Baking soda, which is also another really good scouring agent. There's a scrub brush and a microfiber cloth, because sometimes there's no substitute for just a little elbow grease. And one of my favorite items in there is a drain cleaner that can get hair out of tubs and things like that and remove those clogs without using harsh chemicals that are tough on your septic. And finally, a squeegee that you can use to dry your shower after you use it, which will eliminate, again, the need for harsh chemicals in your shower. With that, I'm going to invite all of our panelists back on screen. Oh, she's got it. Well done, Renee. And that is my favorite little tool there, the drain cleaner. With that, we've got all of our speakers on screen with us now, and we are going to go ahead and get into your guys' questions. So our first question, speakers, is about toilet paper. Does the type of toilet paper we use matter? We've heard that TP that easily breaks down is good, and we've heard the opposite, that TP that breaks down easily can clog up the lines, that instead TP that doesn't break down easily is better. So it's part of the sludge and can be pumped. Leslie and Renee?
I love this question so much because I've done a lot of tinkering around with toilet paper. And what I like to do is think about, well, what do you want the toilet paper to do in your septic tank? Toilet paper is made out of wood fibers or other types of fibers that don't break down easily. And so you really don't want those fibers in your drain field. So what you want is you want those fibers to be either in the scum layer of your tank or in the sludge layer of your tank. And so what I like to do is make my own little septic tank with a small jar, put about a cup of water inside of it, and add a couple sheets of toilet paper and let it sit for a few minutes. And what you want is you want it to hold together either in the top or the bottom of the jar. You do not want it to fall apart into a slurry that goes throughout the entire jar. Now, your second test, you can actually shake it up a little bit, because as the toilet paper goes through the pipes, there's a little bit of movement that's happening. You don't want to, vigorously shake it, but you can shake it up a little bit side to side and then see how it's broken down. And what you really want is it's either should be held together in the top part of the tank or the bottom part of the tank so that it can be pumped out safely.
Excellent, thank you. This person asks, is it okay to put root killer in the D box, or are there concerns about damaging the bacteria in the septic drain field?
Well, I would say any root removal or killing that you do without removing the plant is just going to come back. So I have been out to sites where professionals will even add some root killer, but they've said it's something that is, the lines will have to be cleared, or if it's your distribution box, it'll have to be cleared repeatedly. So it's just better to remove the plant that's causing the roots around your distribution box. And sometimes if it's already full, it may need to be looked at by a professional or dug up to be replaced.
Okay. This is a timely question, I think, given the weather lately. During severe downpours in the winter, is it okay to tarp your tanks and use a sump pump to carry the rainwater away from the tanks?
The preferable solution to that would be to figure out where that rainwater is coming from and divert it away from the tanks. Typically, we ask people to backfill the tanks so that they're mounded up, so they shed water instead of have water standing on them. So, it won't hurt the system to tarp it and use a sump pump, but that's a lot of work when really you need to figure out how to move that water around.
And another thing that can be done is adding watertight risers or lids to your tank. If you have an old tank that has, a lid that's exposed at the surface, even if it's heavy so that it can't be moved, or if it's just, deteriorating and leaking water, that'd be another good solution.
Okay, our next question is a green cleaning question. How do you use baking soda and vinegar to clean a drain? i.e., what are the steps and how much do you use?
I do this all the time at home to get rid of soap scum. And so what I do is I take about 1/8 cup of baking soda and about a half a cup of vinegar. And I shake a little bit of baking soda in the drain, and then I put a little bit of vinegar on top of it, let it fuzz up. And I do that about 10 times, and then I chase it with boiling water, about a gallon of boiling water should drive that down. If that does not work, you can try the Zip It tool that we've given you as well. Or sometimes you do need to use a snake removal.
Okay. Some teepee is made from bamboo, technically a grass. Does that degrade differently from wood products?
Well, it's still not digested. So anything that's not digested really does not belong into the septic tank. You know, toilet paper goes in there as well, but it does float out or either float or sink. And so you really want your bamboo toilet paper or any toilet paper made out of anything, either to float to the top or sink to the bottom and hold together so that it's not a slurry throughout the entire tank.
So you would suggest doing the mini septic tank test with the bamboo teepee as well?
Yep.
Okay. Are all tanks supposed to have an effluent filter? Ours was recently inspected and the form says NA, not present.
Well, a lot of the ones that I've seen don't have effluent filters. Sometimes it will be in the records that it had an effluent filter when it was designed, and sometimes it's been taken out, and sometimes the one has been added after the fact. So it's something that if it says it on the report, then you can be assured that there isn't one in there. Not applicable is probably pretty reliable for your system. Leslie and I are certainly available and willing to help pull your records and see if it was designed to have one. That's that.
Okay. For a gravity system, would an inspection show any potential failures with the baffles? And then they say, did I use the correct word?
You did. You were right on it. That was the perfect way to phrase that. And yes, it will. It'll basically show deficiency if your baffles are not functioning properly.
Okay. What were the phone or the contact numbers for Leslie and Renee? It looks like those have been dropped in the chat. The chat has been disabled for participants, so I'm hoping that you can see that. But there will be, oh, it's also being typed up. There will also be a follow-up email that you guys will get tomorrow with lots of links, including information from the Master Gardeners and how to contact Leslie and Renee. Will the records at Kitsap County tell me if my system has a filter?
Another good question related to the previous one. Sometimes if it's not on your design for the system, but it's in there, then there are other records that we have on file. Those include your pump reports. So if a pump report indicates that there is a filter, that's another place that we can look to see if there's one there.
Okay. This is a question for you, Paul. This person says, I'm looking for flowers that bees love for above my drain field. Would love a recommendation.
You know, it all depends on the growing, where it's located, the soil that you're in. It would be better for you to contact Master Gardeners and ask them that question specifically. Back to my presentation, I love those little English daisies and the bees love them. And this just gives you a very nice, field, to support your system.
Excellent. This person asks, I've read that inspections are required once every 3 years, yet this seems to be a little known fact by my neighbors. If this is a requirement as indicated by in a Kitsap County publication, why is Kitsap County not enforcing periodic inspections?
Well, we don't really enforce it. We enforce it for commercial properties, but we really don't enforce that for private properties. And the reason that we don't is because part of it is it's not as essential as it is for those alternative systems to be looked at every year or every 6 months. They can last, still last on average about 30 years, even when they get a little bit of abuse here and there. So it's not quite as critical. But if you want to get the most life out of your septic system, it is critical for you to be, inspecting your system every 3 years. So what we do is we actually enforce it whenever they're doing something to change the system. So if they're adding bedrooms or they're adding capacity or they're getting a building clearance to change use on the property, that's when we enforce those periodic inspections for residential properties.
Thank you. Does a 1987 system have a distribution box, and could it be underground?
It might if it's a equal distribution system, but remember the system I showed you on the slope where it just goes into the top leg. So if it's on a slope, it could be a serial distribution system. If it's a equal distribution system, then yes, it does have a distribution box, and it's almost always under the ground.
Okay. I have a general idea where my septic tank is located based on drawings. Thanks for the pointer to the KPH website. How can I pinpoint it, and what is generally required for service? I.e., do I need to dig to the tank opening ahead of time?
I would, because it costs $75 to have them dig it up, or $100 to dig it up for you. So I always dig mine up, but I actually have a riser on mine, which makes it really convenient. One of those green, manhole lids. That way I can get in there whenever I need to.
Okay. Our next question says, our household uses a bidet over toilet paper. Does this increase in water over use over adding toilet paper to the system? Is that preferable, or can that cause problems?
Well, just like everything, water use can cause problems. And so you do need to kind of keep an eye on that. And if you're getting public water, there's an easy way for you to calculate that from your water bill. We can help you do that if you don't know how to do that. And the water purveyor can do that as well. It really depends on how much water you're using and how much toilet paper you're using. We prefer to use the minimum requirement of toilet paper, and should be the same for bidets as well.
Okay. What was the drain cleaner called to help get hair out of bathtubs? So there are several brands, and I think typically as employees of the government, we can't recommend a particular brand, but I would say, how could you Google that?
Flexible drain cleaner.
There we go.
Flexible plastic drain cleaner, and it has barbs on it, little barbs.
Yep. They say they're disposable, but some people use them more than once, I've heard. Next question is, my sand filters have been invaded by horsetails. Can horsetails Equisetum telmatea, I'm hoping I got my Latin okay there, damage the septic system?
Yes. They're very invasive. Those root systems go a long ways and go a long ways down, and they're very hard to remove. It's a hand removal process to make it happen. So you need to remove them as far away from your septic system as you can.
Great. So we got a question that said one of our raffle winners was a staff member from Kitsap Public Health. So we wanted to choose a new winner. So I am pleased to announce Heather Craig is our replacement winner. So congratulations on the green cleaning kit. Our next question is, how do we know if there are tree roots impacting the drain field?
Well, you may have some trouble with water capacity. You could get some gurgling in the pipes. You might get some backups, and then you can have a contractor run a camera down the lines to see that kind of thing. But if you have trees within 20 feet of your drain field, then yes, you probably need to think about those roots, especially during the kind of dry summers that we've had this year. Those plants are looking for water and the nutrients that are in that drain field. And so you really do not want to allow them to get in there. Once they get in there, you really can't get them out.
Okay. Do the drain field pipes require maintenance or replacement? Do they fill with sediment over time?
They do sometimes, and there are some things that you could, a septic designer can actually come out and take a look at that. And if it's only a certain amount, they can actually replace, they can do an application for a remediation. And that's a replacement of just some small amounts of the system. And there's also a minor repair that can be done. We can help you with that part. So there are some things that can be done, but as far as filling with sediment over time, typically they tend to fill with a biomat. It's a bacterial matting, and that's what ends up plugging up drain fields. And it's usually caused by, age of the system over time, or not performing your regular maintenance in time.
Okay. Our next question asks, since we've all been home more this past year, should we check on our tanks sooner?
I would say yes. I certainly have. In fact, I've got an inspection coming up in 2 weeks. So I would say yes, because you're the only one that knows how much more you were home. But I know in my family last year, we were all 3 home. And that was very unusual. We're almost always gone all day. And so we probably doubled the flow in the house.
Okay. I have 2 manholes about 6 feet apart. Would it be a bad idea to lay a stone pathway running between them?
It depends on if there are any components in between those 2 manholes. And so it sounds like those might just be septic tank lids. In the case of a septic tank lid, it probably would not be a bad idea to lay a stone pathway between them. But if there was a component in between that, like a valve or a splitter, you want to make sure you know exactly where all your components are before you lay any paths.
Okay. Another TP question. Does Kirkland TP pass your test?
I cannot answer that question. I'm sorry. But what I do is I ask people to grab toilet paper from various locations and try it at home. Get a 2-cup jar, put about a cup of water in there and give it about 5 minutes, a couple minutes, and see what happens. If it breaks down into a big cloud and throughout the entire jar, then your whole septic tank is full of those fibers and those will get out into your drain field.
Okay. I have a sock filter. Do you have instructions for cleaning and maintaining the filter sock?
Same thing, exactly. That's the same thing. And yes, I do. What you do is you shut off the water in the house, let everything calm down, and get some gloves and wear those gloves, because remember, these things are contaminated with bacteria. And so then what you're going to do is you're going to bring your hose over at a trickle, and you're going to gently pull. You're going to open up the outlet baffle of your tank, the cap, and you're going to gently pull the filter out and put it over the center part of your tank and gently rinse it down. You don't want to pull it out quickly to allow a big slug of material to go out into the drain field, and you don't want to rinse it off quickly to let that same thing happen. So you really want to be gentle with the cleaning of it. And you can kind of get an idea of about how often it needs to be done. If it happens on a Sunday night and you don't want to do it quite then, just pull it up a few inches. The pipe's only 4 inches wide. And so if you pull it up 4 inches, you'll have a whole new clean spot to start with.
Okay. If a drain field fails and needs to be replaced in another area of the property, can the same tank be used by creating new pipe holes in the tank to accommodate the new drain field?
Yes, tanks can be reused as long as they can be certified for reuse. And the way we certify them is we want to make sure they're watertight. And they don't even have to put new pipe holes. We just have the same inlet and the same outlet. You can replace the baffles. I typically recommend that if your tank is over 20 years old, I recommend replacing it, just because concrete tanks that stand in water don't do well over time. And we know that during the wet season, our tanks stand in water.
Okay. Who do we contact to do a septic inspection? Would that be the same company you call to pump your tank?
Yes, and it depends on what kind of system you have. So you want to make sure that who you're calling is able to do the inspection on your type of system.
Okay.
And you can ask them for an inspection and pumping if needed.
Okay. Are there bad or bogus septic companies out there?
We have a list. Yeah, we have a list of certified professionals on our website at kitsappublichealth.org.
And the link to that website will be part of that email that you receive tomorrow. Is there a list of qualified preferred pumper businesses, and what licenses, credentials should we look for? Do they need to be bonded and insured?
We actually certify them, and I do think they are bonded and insured, but we certify them. They have to take a test with the Kitsap Health District before they can pump in our jurisdiction.
The grass around my riser lids is dead. Is this a sign of a problem?
Not necessarily. It could have been backfilled with sand, and sand has a hard time holding water. It also could be that there are some gases that come out of the lid sometimes, and so those gases can be a little bit harsh on systems. But it's probably the combination of the two.
Okay. One of my neighbors has a very old system. If they haven't had an inspection in over 10 years, how might I know if their system is failing and impacting my property?
You can Typically, you'll see matting, you'll see like the failure pictures that we had. If you have something like that that's flowing on your property, call us, because we do take public complaints on those kinds of things, and we will come out and sample. But really, the only way we can really tell is by sampling a water sample, and then, you know, we can kind of track it back to where it might be coming from.
Okay. What is the average lifespan of a septic tank?
Well, a tank can last, I mean, the system typically lasts about 30 years on average is what we're seeing. And so we see some that last, you know, 15, and we see some that last 50 and 60. And it really all depends on how well you take care of them.
Okay. Paul, this is a question for you again. This person asks, I already have grass and weeds on the septic field. I don't want to flip the grass and plant seeds, and I don't want to remove the existing turf. I don't think I can cover it up with cardboard. So what is step one?
That's an interesting problem. I would be overplanting with good seed. I think, you know, top dressing that ground with some topsoil, and then going ahead and overplanting is the best thing to do. You can eventually choke out most of the weeds, you know, except for blackberries and all, which will need to be, you know, dug out by hand, you know, not by mechanically. So I think overplanting would be where I would go.
And is there a limit? I'm going to ask a follow-up. Is there a limit to how much top dressing that you can put over your tank and drain field?
Well, you're not going to go put 3 feet on there. So I would prefer to top dress it with a couple inches, you know, something to get this, that the seed can bond into and start growth.
Excellent. How do you locate a septic tank that does not have a riser?
We look at the records. We can find it through the records. Usually we can try to triangulate it. A lot of times with the older records, some of them are not so good, but we're used to looking at those. And so we can kind of look at the house drawing and triangulate it a little and step back. And this time of year before the rains start, it's really easy to find drain field legs because they can be green.
Okay. I have a neighbor a few houses away who has septic waste leaking into Puget Sound. Another neighbor told me that Kitsap knows about it, but the problem remains. What is Kitsap's policy? Does Kitsap force homeowners to fix the issue?
Yes, we do. We enforce surfacing sewage. However, there are some complicating factors, and one of those right now is parts. We're having a heck of a time getting parts. And so, for example, I just had one fail last week and they could not get a control panel, and it's on back order for 2 or 3 months. And so what we did with this one is we're pumping it into a different drain field. So what we don't want to do is to cost the owner, make them pump that tank every week or so, where it's $400 or $500 a week, and then they don't have the money to replace it. So what we try to do is find some type of a solution, a short-term solution, while we're working on the long-term solution. Sometimes we're lucky and it's just a minor repair. Renee and I just had one where it turned out it wasn't even making it to the distribution box. And so that was a really easy one. We were able to fix that one within a couple of weeks. But yeah, we follow up on these very, very closely and carefully. And if you need information about that, you're welcome to call Kitsap Public Health and ask about a sewage complaint. We need the address. That will help.
Okay. Great conversation, this person says. We have large fir trees near our Glendon mounds. Is that a problem? Our inspector didn't flag this.
Well, I know Renee just took some trees out of her drainfield area proactively, and that was probably a good choice for her. So it really depends on the setbacks, but fir trees can have really big roots, and they do, you know, Glendon biofilters, what they do is it's a concrete box. And inside the box, they put different layers of gravel and sand. And so what happens is the sewage is pumped into the bottom of the box a little bit at a time, and it wicks up through all that media and gets treated. Once it gets to the top of the box, it's disposed in that mound around it. So those trees are going to look for that mound around it because that's where that water is coming from, and that water has nutrients in it. So it's easy for Glendon biofilter boxes to get broken and moved, and you know the whole installation to be damaged by tree roots. So you do have to be very careful.
A follow-up question, Leslie and Paul, does the maturity of the trees around a system matter?
Well, the more mature, the bigger the root system. So yeah, it matters, but it's still, you got to, we say 25 feet out, is the best measurement, so even around the Glendon, it should be 25 feet out, to be safe to protect your system.
Okay. Is wood mulch over the tanks bad?
It depends on how much you use. If you just use a small amount of it, it shouldn't be a problem. It's easy to dig up. It's easy to get a hold of it. Get in there if you need to. You don't want that leaking into the tank though.
Okay. My question just moved. What do you need to avoid soil compaction around the tanks or drain field?
I think the biggest one here is going to be parking and driving, and pasturing large animals or anything that's really going to compact the soil. Those are the big ones.
Okay. Our next question. This says, my home was constructed in 1967 and has the original septic tank and drain field, which is gravity feed. My backyard, which holds the drain field, sits on top of an old ravine or stream bed, which was filled and compacted to accommodate the drain field when the home was built. The septic tank works well and is cleaned by septic clean out outfits every 3 years. The drain field over time is sunk by about 2 to 3 feet below the overall level of the yard area that holds the drain area. The septic tank drains into the depressed drain field area. I show no surface water. However, the effluent appears to drain completely down into the depression. A county inspector came out about 4 years ago and looked at the septic field and said, if it ain't broken, don't worry about it. I plan to sell the house in the next 2 years and don't want a dysfunctional system to block the sale. How do I get a neutral inspection that tells me if I have a problem, and are there financial assistance programs to repair or replace the system?
Well, we can look at a couple different ways. If there is any water surfacing around the drain field, we could dye test the house to make sure it's not coming out anywhere else. As far as financial assistance programs go, there will be a resource linked from Craft 3, which is a nonprofit septic loan company. They do have different loans and rates based on income level. And if you're a senior citizen with low income or very low income, you may be qualified for a USDA grant at 1% interest, or a loan at 1% interest, or a grant that might pay for replacements.
Okay. In one of your early slides, it showed some observation holes built into the drain field legs. Are those always included? And should I be able to find them on the surface?
They are nowadays. They were not required back in the olden days. And a lot of people cut them right off. I do not recommend doing that. It's unfortunate because that's really a great way to figure out whether your system is working properly from above the ground. And so you may still find them. They may still be in there. Typically, those will be shown on your as-built drawing on your permit.
Okay. My video goes unstable at the wrong times. Oh no. Is there a site that gives the instructions on how to do the toilet paper test?
I have not seen one, but you will be getting a recording of this workshop, and so you should be able to watch that section again.
Yep. And just FYI, the video takes us a few days to usually download and upload back onto YouTube. So that email will come out a few days after the webinar is done. Is Ridex good to use monthly, or is that just flushing money down the drain? Is monthly the ideal frequency if it is good?
Well, we also, in the list of resources, will be giving you a homeowner's guide for on-site septic systems, and it calls out in there specifically that they're costly and necessary. In most cases, you're not going to need to add anything to your system. Leslie does give kind of a some alternate ideas. If you had, a cabin that was used, really infrequently, then you may need to add something to get it going. But otherwise, your digested food waste has all of the microbes that are needed to do the job in your system.
Okay. Is there a list of Kitsap approved septic systems for small properties available?
There is a list of approved products that the state puts out, the State Department of Health. And we are allowed to use any of the products on that list. Any designer can assist with that. They all know what's on the list. And we have a list of designers on our website at kitsappublichealth.org. We also have designers and professional engineers. So you can pick somebody from that list, pick a couple of folks from that list, and determine, what you need to find out.
Okay, we are sneaking up on 1 o'clock. And so I just want to put a few, just let you all that are attending know a few things. We will continue to stick around and answer questions as long as we've still got questions and as long as we've still got attendees, but I know that not everybody may be able to stay extra time. When you leave or when I close the webinar, you'll get a link to an evaluation. This is the first series of septic webinars that we've done. So we're really eager to hear your feedback and hear how we do or how we did, and know if there's any ways that we could improve this for you. You'll receive a follow-up email tomorrow that'll include resources that we've talked about during the presentations and Q&A. And then in a few days, you'll receive a link where you can go and view the video. So if you missed parts, if you had joined late or had crummy internet for a little while there, then you should be able to go back and get those. Part of that email, though, that you'll receive tomorrow does have Leslie's contact information, Renee's contact information, and information for the Master Gardener. So if you need more information from any of them, you'll be able to do that there. Otherwise, we're going to keep on plugging away at the questions and appreciate you staying for as long as you are able. Next question is, what do your services cost? I.e., when you say you can come out and test or bring your records to show you, etc. What does that mean?
Leslie and I are public servants, so us coming out is you're not going to be billed or charged for it. We can bring out your records, give site-specific recommendations, and even do dye testing, and that won't incur a cost to you, a bill.
Okay. I see that there is a follow-up on the 25-foot requirement, and now I am looking through the questions for it. If any of our, 25 feet from where is the follow-up question?
From the drainfield legs or any component. So you need to figure out exactly where everything goes and then measure 25 feet off that. And remember, measure 25 feet, but you want to look at the mature size of the tree that you're planting or the shrub. And so it's 25 feet from that mature size.
Okay. Does heavy rain impact a drain field or cause an odor?
It should not. If you're getting an odor with heavy rain, what that means is you're basically getting water probably coming into your septic tank, or maybe it's going into your drain field. You should not have any odors during rain unless something's open or something's getting in there and forcing it out. And that would be something to really keep an eye on. What you want to do is make sure that your septic tank is watertight so that any roof drains or anything in that area is not going to flow down into the system, because it can cause a lot of trouble trying to treat the dirty water when you have a lot of clean water coming in there, inundating the soils.
Okay. Are locust trees okay to plant around the tank?
No, actually nothing is okay around the tank. It really need to think about putting your plant material out on the perimeter and using only shallow rooted, even some annuals or something periodically to pretty it up if that's what you're trying to do. But planting around that tank is just not acceptable.
So when would we actually contact Leslie and Renee? What specifically, this person asks?
If you could not find your records, if you couldn't find your water budget, if you can't figure out where your system's located, if you're having problems with your system, any of that kind of thing. We help you with that. Our goal is to help you get the most life out of your septic system investment.
Okay. According to my as-built diagram, my system has 2 manholes 6 feet apart that I can clearly see and 5 legs that are 70 feet long, but I can only see 1 cap down there, and I think must be an observation port. So there's a few questions here. 1, the cap is half buried and at a bit of an angle. Should I be concerned? 2, should I be concerned that I can't see 4 more port caps? And 3, there are 2 other manholes in the vicinity of the system that aren't on the as-built. Does that mean they're not part of the septic system, i.e. maybe they're for gutter drains?
So all of that, that's possible. And that's another good reason to have Leslie and I come out and help walk you through that. And we can look at your records, see if we see any other drainage pipes. And I can speak from experience on this one. If you have inspection ports for your drain field, you really need to make sure that you are keeping them exposed so that when your system is inspected, the inspector can have eyes on your drain field legs by just opening up a cap. Also, I've been out to sites where people haven't really taken care of those caps and they've hit them with lawnmowers or those types of things. So really protect your investment and know where your components are and protect them.
And just in addition on that, says that my 5-leg system is only 5 years old.
Yeah, and they can be covered with grass or soil or something. It's pretty easy, if you're mulching your grass clippings, that they'll be covered up. So we can help you, measure. If you want to bring out a tape measure and see if we can, especially with a system that's only 5 years old, we should be able to. It should have pretty good records that'll help us find all the components.
Great. So sorry, the next one on the queue is that somebody likes my kitty. They always know when I'm doing Zooms and they like to get in on the fun. Somebody says, thank you for being here. We appreciate you guys all being here. Somebody says, thank you for mentioning the infrequent cabin use. I recently purchased a small home on the Hood Canal that I will only be using a few weeks at a time, 3 or 4 times a year. Any special recommendations?
If it's a gravity system, you really don't need to worry about it. The only time I've heard of people that have to do things with it is if it's an aerobic treatment system and they haven't been there for a while. And what'll happen is sometimes it'll run out of organic material, and so you have to give it a start. But if it's a gravity system, you will not need that. And you can talk to your service provider. So when you do have it inspected, that would be a good time to ask that question.
Okay. Can a raised deck be placed over a drain field?
It can, as long as it has a hatch so that you can easily access it. And you want to make sure that it's a big enough hatch so that they can get that pump hose in from both sides, because they need to get all around inside the tank to get all the corners. So just having it over the hole is not enough. You really want it to be bigger so that they can really get that pump out all the corners of the tank.
Okay. This person says, I have a 3-bedroom Glendon. Do the aerators in the septic tank that promote anaerobic bacteria work?
They work. I can speak from experience. I have an aerobic treatment unit, and I had to turn it off for a week while the system filled back up after pumping. And since not a lot of water was being used, I delayed turning it back on, and it reeked up the whole neighborhood. So if you have an aerobic treatment unit, it's working. It needs to be, those aerobic treatment units are doing a specific job of introducing oxygen into the system.
So with a Glendon system, really the key on a Glendon system is watch your fats, oils, and greases and your waste strength, because they do easily gum up with stuff, and make sure that you don't have deer or dogs digging them up, because that happens a lot as well.
Would echo that for anybody on a sewer system too. Watch your fats, oils, and greases. Public Works is struggles when those clog up our pipes. If my tank is far from the drain field, how would roots affect a cement tank?
If it's 25, 30 feet away, 40 feet, 60 feet, it's not going to. But if it's next to the tank, or if it's within 25 feet, those roots will seek water and they'll seek nutrients. And so we've seen it before where roots actually invade septic tanks.
Yep.
This person says, I have an older gravity feed tank, I think 1975. Am I able to install an alarm at this point?
You are, but you really only need an alarm in a pump tank. So if you're pumping to gravity, that would be the point where you definitely would want an alarm. But just for a gravity system, you really don't need an alarm, because your septic tank, it should be draining directly out into your drain field. There should not be any impediment. If there is, then the drain field's not working right.
Okay. Are gray water cisterns legal in Kitsap County?
No, and gray water can be very contaminated. I know a lot of people think gray water is safe, but it's really not. It has all kinds of bacteria in there, strep, staph, you know, all the things that you wash off your hands. Those are things that people can catch. And so we really want to make sure that gray water is treated properly. It's got to be treated in a drain field. We don't discharge it to the ground surface or groundwater because it can make people sick.
Okay. Do master gardeners for fee offer on-site visits, consultations regarding septic related plantings and other plantings?
No, we don't do site visits. We're more than glad to provide resources for you, give you sites that can and come out and do plantings. There are a lot of landscape engineers and things that can help you do that, but we don't go out to visit sites at all.
Okay. I was told when we bought our house that we shouldn't use a riding mower to mow our grass over the drain field and reserve. Is that true?
Depends on how big it is. If it's a really big honking one that's heavy, maybe you don't want to. You know, you don't want to compact your soils, especially when they're wet. But typically, most of the mowers we have in our area are, you know, normal household mowers are not going to really harm that. But you just want to make sure that it's not heavy like a vehicle.
Okay. Is a slowly or intermittently running toilet going to set off the septic alarm?
Yes, it will. And it will also stress your system. You would be really surprised at how much water is coming out of that. I mean, a couple times I was showing my daughter that she left the sink running and I put a jar in there and it fills up in a very short time period. So, you know, really you want to make sure, first of all, you're wasting water. If you're paying for your water, it's very expensive. If you're not, you're pumping it out of the ground, that's electricity. So either way, you are paying for your water. And so you really want to make sure that you're not wasting water, not wasting money. And you really don't want to put clean water in a place that you know you really have to do a heavy lift with dirty water.
Okay. We are getting toward the end of our list of questions here. We're going to finish answering those, but folks that are hanging on, I'll let you know that once we're finished with all the questions that have been typed into the Q&A, we'll invite you, if you still need more clarification, have more questions, you can raise your hand using the raise hand button at the bottom of the screen, and we can unmute you and you can ask questions that maybe are a little tougher to type out. The next question, does a small dogwood have a shallower root system?
Dogwoods basically have like wet feet, so they are going to seek out that drain field and that septic system very, very aggressively. So I don't put one of those in.
This is a comment or maybe a word of caution from one of our attendees. Watch fats, oils, and greases, they say, and don't rinse latex paintbrushes into a drain that goes into the system. That is very true.
Or any paintbrushes,
Yes.
No paint, no oils, any chemicals that you would not eat are not good for your septic.
FYI, I have a barn septic field, one bathroom, told by septic pumper, don't need to check it every 3 years. I assumed I don't need it checked very often. It's a gravity system.
On how much you use it. You know, if you use it, you know, all the time, if you work there, maybe you're working in your barn every day and you're using the bathroom and you're eating lunch there, then you may want to inspect it every 3 years. But typically you can figure out if you keep the same use of the building, you can figure out periodically how long it takes to accumulate that waste. If you're not cooking in there and you're not using it all that much, then you can probably stretch it at least 5 years or beyond.
Okay. And our last typed up question, can I walk my dog over my septic field?
Absolutely. Just don't let them dig it up. And remember that pet waste also can cause problems. If you're not picking up your pet waste, it can wash off during, like, think about the rain we had the last few days. Yeah. So pet waste, if you don't pick it up once a week and double bag it and put it in the garbage, it really can cause problems down on our beaches.
Okay, I'm looking through our attendee list and I don't see any raised hands. I'm going to say that slowly, just in case anybody decides at the last minute to submit another question or raise their hand. But since I'm not seeing any, I just want to take a moment to thank all three of our presenters for a fantastic presentation today. And I want to thank all of you who joined us today. I hope that it was informative. Again, you will see a link for a survey pop up when the webinar ends or when you log out. When we would really appreciate your